Okay, folks, thank you again for being here this evening. This is our Adirondack Priority Waters Rundown. We're going to be talking about some really exciting projects. We have some wonderful guests joining us this evening. I'll be your host, joining you from Trout Unlimited here in New York State. My name is Jesse Vadala. I work as an engagement coordinator on our Northeast Conservation staff. We get to work on some incredible projects for wild fish and cold water throughout the Northeast region. I am supporting a really incredible and very talented team as on the outreach side. And so putting together events like this are part of what I hope to continue to do more of. And again, thank you all for participating and being here tonight. And I'll pass it over to New York's restoration manager, also my very good friend and mentor, Tracy Brown.
Hi, everyone. I am Tracy Brown, and I am the program now director. I just got a title change. Yay for that, whatever that means. But I basically manage the team in New York and Connecticut. And in New York, we now have a team of, there are 6 of us, Jesse being one, and we have a great talented team that are doing conservation work across the state. And we look forward to, talking through what we have going on in the Adirondacks. And we are grateful for our DEC partners that have joined us today. And I will pass it off to Steve.
Thanks, Tracy. It's good to see some familiar faces out there. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Steve Hurst. I'm Chief of the Bureau of Fisheries at DEC. I've worked for DEC for 39 years now, I think. I don't know, I'm losing count, but it's been a really exciting past year. 2024 was an exciting year with Trout Unlimited. Those of you who listened to me before know that we've worked really hard on forging a great relationship with Tracy and her crew. We've got a lot of great projects done, a lot of good individual projects, but we're going to talk tonight about one big project that I'm really super excited about. It's one of the biggest things that I think I've ever been involved with in my career. And I want to let folks know that the Bureau of Fisheries is taking on more and more habitat work. We've just hired a habitat biologist, and we're really excited, not just about the habitat work that we're doing, but the partnerships that we're forming as we're doing it. And so I think you'll see a little bit of that tonight. With that, I will pass it on to Region 6 Manager Jana Lantry.
Good evening, everyone. I recognize some names I know I've talked to and emailed or maybe seen some of you. Others I've not. So first I want to thank Tracy and Jesse for giving me the opportunity to join this meeting. And it's nice meeting all of you out there. I am the Region 6 Fisheries Manager, so I'm based out of Watertown. I've been the manager there, the regional manager since 2018, and prior to that, I worked on Lake Ontario for over 2 decades. So I look forward to meeting you folks as time passes.
Thank you, Jana.
Turn it over to Rob, Region 5 Fish Manager.
Thanks, Jana. Hi, everybody. Rob Fiorentino over in Region 5 Warrensburg office. Thanks for having me. I agree, this is really exciting. Not going to repeat what Steve and Jana said, but I really think this is an awesome project. I'm really happy to be part of it. And, the work the TU has been doing has been awesome. And I'm glad I'm part of it. Been here since 2008, was a fisheries biologist doing brook trout work and learned from probably a bunch of people you guys know, Rich Priel, Leo DeMong, Bill Schock, and glad to carry the tradition of good brook trout work. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Good stuff. Thanks, Rob. Appreciate it. All right. Tracy, I'm going to let you drive as much as you like, and I will be moving the slides along. Again, I'll also try to keep an eye on the chat for folks who have questions. The whole idea about tonight is to talk about some work that's already occurred in this region, and then some really exciting prospects that are on the horizon for our team here at TU, working directly in partnership with DEC. So thank you all for joining in on this really exciting discussion. So feel free to use that chat window, and we'll try to keep an eye on it. Cool. All right,
All
Tracy,
right.
you want to move through this thing?
I will move through it. And I have to say that I'm not a fan of hearing myself talk endlessly. So please feel free to jump in, ask questions. We are going to kind of do an overview of the work that we've got going on in Region 6 and then in Region 5, and then open up to questions. But along the way, if you have a comment, question, please jump in. You can raise your hand and we'll make sure to call you to be able to ask your question. So, okay, let's kick it off.
All right.
All right, by this time, I don't think there's anybody in the room that hasn't heard the word priority water. And it is really the reason why we have such a focus on the Adirondacks. We haven't, over the years since I've been at TU, now going on 13 years, we haven't had the opportunity to work in the Adirondacks until recently. And it was really part of the priority waters planning process that really highlighted the need for us to be in the Adirondacks. Of course, it made sense. We just had limited resources, limited staff. But as we progressed through the priority waters planning process, we really identified the Adirondacks Tug Hill area as a priority for brook trout recovery, reconnection, all of those words that we do at TU. So this map right here illustrates the priority waters across New York. But if you have time to peruse the TU website, you will see that this map, we have maps similar to this across the state. So every state has these amazing priority waters where we are focusing with our partners, our members, our councils on, focused efforts in those areas.
Tracy, if I can just make a quick addition from the outreach and our grassroots TU side, something that Tracy and I love to chat about when we're speaking to fellow TU members across the state is that our Priority Waters program also gives us a chance to step across some of our traditionally lined territory markers of what each chapter does. We've got really incredible wild trout water to work on collectively across these regions. And we know that many of the folks attending tonight's call don't necessarily live in Region 5 or Region 6. They just love fishing there all summer long. So they care deeply about waters that are not necessarily in their backyard or where their chapter works. So Priority Waters, again, an opportunity for us to all get together and work on some incredible projects. And that's why I think this frames a great discussion for where we're headed, which is north to the Adirondacks. So next slide, right, Trace?
Yeah, I will mention that on this particular slide, you see that there are some of the smaller green watersheds that we are calling home waters. And those are equally important watersheds, just identified at a smaller scale. Maybe it was a priority because it was already a focus of a chapter, but for sure it had a value of native and wild trout recovery. So it's something to keep in mind.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, so as we're going through our priority waters, one of the first steps is really trying to establish a vision for that priority water, which is no easy task and it's not necessarily my forte. But I think when we were thinking about the Adirondacks and what that means, brook trout comes to mind, right? We want to celebrate the brook trout. We want to think about the future. We want to understand what's going on. We want to make sure that under all circumstances, climate change, whatever that might look like, that we have a sustained population of brook trout. And so a future where Adirondack brook trout populations are secure and self-sustaining, supported by a network of pristine, interconnected cold water streams and enjoyed by anglers and nature enthusiasts for generations. That's where it sits now. I'm not sure how that resonates with you, but happy to hear feedback. But setting a vision, helps to guide the process forward. So within the priority waters of the Adirondacks, we have identified the headwaters of the Black River, South Branch Moose River, Beaver River, and the Tug Hill area as focal watersheds. And I just have to call out that picture is an amazing picture of the TU team. And in the center, everyone knows John Braco. We had a great day out on the Battenkill this year. So that's your New York-based TU team. So tied to our our vision is really what our 5-year conservation goals are, and they're nothing that would be unexpected. You know, we want to reconnect streams and watersheds so trout can move freely through the watershed. We want to first understand stream conditions, not only to set the stage and really be able to track changes through time, but really to help us strategically plan where we want to work and the kind of work we want to do. We want to work with DEC and other partners where we can on state land to remove barriers. We want to help DEC understand habitat conditions to stop stalking if that's an appropriate management decision. We want to engage and grow a network of people beyond TU, beyond DEC, that love the resource as much as we do, and collaborate with partners across organizations, and most of all, expand this appreciation of native brook trout across the Adirondacks. So our 5-year conservation goals and our vision really sets the stage of how we will move forward. And our conservation strategies, again, if you've been with TU, which I know all of you are well versed in what TU stands for, our conservation strategies will remain the same. Starting from assessment, reconnection, restoration, and engagement, it really are the pillars of how we do our work and how we feel like we can get the most benefit for native and wild trout. When we start our work in a watershed, the first thing we like to do is really understand and collect the data that's needed to assess current conditions and plan for what the appropriate restoration strategy is. And again, the pillars of our work: reconnection, we want to make sure the trout can move freely; restoration, reconnecting floodplains and riparian corridors and in-stream habitat; and then protection, really identifying those opportunities where we can promote and achieve that protection piece, and of course the outreach and advocacy tied to all of our work.
I think it's a time maybe most appropriate to discuss the importance of having the stewards that we do that care so deeply about the region. And I think now more than ever, we're looking to meet more folks who are able to organize and support thoughtful measures that really show the importance of advocating for these beautiful wild spaces. And so that's a lot of what we're hoping to do, again, by hosting events such as these in person and on Zoom, meeting folks who will again, want to be a part of this strategy, seeing themselves as the ones to stand up for the rivers in need. So again, this is a timely message, you know, beyond measure, really. So part of the goals and definitely part of our ethos here at this team at TU. So
great, thanks, Jesse. Okay, so where did we start? So it always starts at the beginning with culverts. So I think it was at this point maybe 4 years ago, and Jana, you may remember, but we did get some small funding in the Beaver River to do culvert assessments, and we had a team of 2 out, and they collected all the road stream crossing data within that watershed, and that really is how we start. You know, we just have to know what is going on, and so with that data, we were able to identify 2 priority crossings, working with the towns to get those replacements done. And then we expanded that assessment to be to include the entire Black River watershed. So that was region 4 and 5. And again, we have the data, we've looked at all the road stream crossings, and then you take that data and really understand what that means and how we can have the biggest benefit on the ground.
awesome. So our next couple slides, taking a look at some of the priority projects that were executed already. So it's fun to look ahead. And slide that along.
So in the Beaver River watershed, we identified 2 priorities, and those replacements were funded through a combination of state funding and federal funding, Great Lakes program, but they were with the towns of Croghan and New Bremen. And this particular one, you know, an important tributary to the Beaver River, opened up over 10 miles of prime brook trout habitat. And this is in Region 6.
I think structurally good example there. I'm sorry to interrupt, Tracy, but structurally a good example here of a fully connected waterway, not impaired by the design or size of a culvert, unrestricted for passage of fish. Obviously, we've all seen the great photos and videos of salmon and trout reaching great heights to get to new levels of habitat. But certainly their chances for increased productivity would be better if they were not traveling over such insane terrain. So structures like this with a natural bottom not only keep that contiguous flow of the river, but also create additional habitat and shade for fish that are moving about through the streams. So really a good example of one of the design styles for reconnection.
And another one, is a different design. As we go from site to site, we do choose a design that is most appropriate to reestablish that reconnection and restore the river. I think the other important point that I'm sure you've all heard over and over again is, these projects go hand in hand with town infrastructure improvements. And so we're bringing in state and federal funding to help restore the stream and make that reconnection. And at the same time, providing these smaller towns with upgrades to their infrastructure. So in both of these cases, the town supported the project through hauling of materials, through taking travel management and some materials. And then we hired contractors, local contractors, so money going into the local economy to then go and do the work itself. So it's so many benefits to this kind of work. I'll just stop there. That's why I get so excited about culverts. I know everyone's like, oh, another culvert, but you talk to me about culverts and it makes me really excited. And so collectively, these two culverts, I love the idea that we can track the number of miles. And in this case, it's 14 miles, right? So 14 miles of fully connected stream to a main stem river it feels like a lot. So we're happy about that, Jana.
Right. This one's all for your space, Jana. Feel free to kind of field this however you like, but wanted to give you a little bit of airtime here too.
Oh, I appreciate that. So the work that Tracy and Jesse and the whole TU crew has done in Region 6 is extremely impressive and very much needed. The work in the Beaver River, I think the first pot of money that funded those culvert assessments came from the Beaver River Advisory Council. So that is a group that there's a pot of money that was established through hydro relicensing, and that goes into projects that can benefit the resource impacted by the hydroelectric facilities on the river. And then it grew from there. The work that was kind of the first culvert assessments that, since I've been manager, that I'm aware of. But then Tracy and crew got funding to do culvert assessments and NAC assessments throughout the Western Adirondacks and Tug Hill. And that is huge. That is work that we would not have been able to do. And we're heading in the right direction now, so we can move towards habitat improvement, culvert replacement, improve that connectivity, which is needed more now than ever before, in my opinion. And so I'm excited for what the future holds in our partnership, Region 6 partnership with TU. Later tonight, you're going to hear about all the work that's been done with TU and Region 5 and South Branch of the Moose. And I'm really looking forward to when the time comes to move downstream and into Region 6 waters and start working on some culvert replacements. I grew up on the edge of Tug Hill and got to skip school to go fishing in trout streams. So the fact that there's some potential projects identified on Tug Hill is pretty exciting to me as well. So
that's great.
You're
Thanks, Jana.
amongst good company, Jana, for skipping school to go fishing. I'm pretty sure the collective audience here was like, oh, yeah, that sounds about like my life. Love it. Thank you for that. All right. I'm going to stop sharing for just a moment. And I want to make sure I didn't miss anything in the chat. But for just a moment while I stop sharing, I'll try to switch windows here. And
That's all clear.
All clear?
All clear.
Okay.
All right. So as he's doing that, we are now transitioning into Region 5 and the work that we're working on the South Branch Moose River. We're going to kick it off with a movie. Not the whole movie.
So
just the
we
trailer.
won't show the whole thing. And I hope that folks have, oh gosh, I should have thought ahead to put the link in quick format. If anyone wouldn't mind helping out the collective group, feel free to drop the full YouTube link in there. But all we're going to do on screen, if it's all right with you all, and technically it all moves along, just going to show the quick trailer for this film project that we did up in the Adirondacks together with DEC. We had some amazing filmmakers who run a YouTube channel called Frequent Flyers Fishing. They came out with us into the South Moose for some really unique opportunities to film. We were able to get approval, thank you, Steve, to be able to move some drones around. So we got some incredible aerial footage to go along with the on-the-ground footage as well. So really an incredible opportunity to shoot some great footage of the team together. So how about I try to go ahead and share this one?
I'll just say it was not scripted, so be kind when you're listening to it. It was totally on the fly.
All right. If this works, I think, oh, thank you very much for dropping that link. And that will be for the full video. This is just the trailer for anyone who might not have seen it. And hopefully we're all good here.
We want to get you fired up for the next part of the conversation.
All right. So now I think we're up and hopefully sound will be all right. Cool.
Everybody clear?
Sound or no sound? Yeah?
Sounds good.
Good sound? All right. Let's let it play. Thank you for your patience.
Everybody clear? Hitting anybody? That's like 2.2 amps.
TU and DEC are in the Adirondacks today. We have our teams out and we're really trying to understand where the brook trout are within the South Branch Moose River watershed with the goal of reconnecting, restoring habitat for brook trout.
We're not only going to get this important work done, which is going to be sustainable for a very, very long time for generations to come. We're doing work here today to make sure that these fish can adapt in the future. The wisdom of those people that came before us that set the stage for all this. Our forefathers here in New York saw the value in the Adirondack Park. Thank God that they did that, because if they didn't, we wouldn't have this opportunity.
One organization or the other can't do all of the work. There's a lot to do, and to see a crew of TU and DEC folks coming out to sample fish, let's do this.
Yeah. This is going to be the ordinary here for the next few years in the Moose River Plains.
All right. Thank you all. We'll try to switch screens back to where I was here, if I don't mind. Thank you,
Had
Tracy.
anyone not seen that at this point?
Yeah, hasn't. I gotta ask, have folks been able to check it out? Feel free to unmute if you did get to watch it. If you have any comments, feedback, would love to hear it.
Andrew, I saw you go off mute. And then you were drinking something.
No, I was able to watch it, and it's phenomenal, and the work y'all are doing is just incredible. I'm glad you're getting to share it and let people see the work you're doing on the ground. I think that's very important. That way people can be aware of the work, and just you're advocating the work that you're doing. So now we get to see the work that is being done on the landscape. So thank you.
Yeah, super fun. So my family's feedback was, weren't there any bloopers? And I was like, oh, there were bloopers.
Oh yeah.
Added the bloopers.
Yes, we actually edited Chris Powers falling down a ditch as we were walking in. I didn't think anyone noticed it. I thought it was going to slip by, but our friends at DEC said maybe we should clip that out. It wasn't necessarily the most flattering, but I thought it was pretty funny. So maybe we'll get to do a behind the scenes blooper reel now
Yeah.
that this is out.
Yeah, absolutely. So
That's
thank you
pretty
all.
good.
As that was the prelude to the longer version of the film, which ends up being around 10 minutes. And it really was designed to kind of celebrate the partnership and just get people excited about what we are doing. And we are really just starting this project. So lots of opportunities to learn more about it. We're going to share a bunch of information tonight and also, be engaged in the project yourself. So here we go with the South Moose stuff.
Moving into the South Moose.
Moving into the South Moose, Region 5. And Steve, this is you.
Sure. So I'm going to talk about the South Moose mainly, but I'm going to throw a few more TU things in there if that's okay, Jesse. So
go freestyle. It's on you, Steve.
So as I said before, this is like one of the most exciting projects I've ever been involved in, and I've been involved in quite a few over my career. And when Tracy came to me with this project a few years ago, I couldn't have been more excited because it really dovetails with where we're going in the Bureau of Fisheries with our management. As I spoke earlier, we're really trying to focus on habitat management more. I think the timing is just incredible. As most of you know, we came out with a new trout stream management plan, not a new one. It's our first trout stream management plan in 2021, where we drew the line between stocked fish and wild fish. And I don't know, I think in many respects, it helps set the stage for projects like this. And we recognized, and it said in that plan, that we knew we had to do more in habitat work and that we were going to try and get there. And it's been tough to get there. It's been really hard. And Tracy and I started out together back in 2018 doing small projects together. We both made some mistakes here and there. We had to feel our way through, but through that time, I think that we developed this relationship where we have a true understanding of where we want to go. And I think it's an understatement to say that we have a shared vision. Really, I think we're looking at the same thing the same way. And we value wild trout, and in particular, brook trout. We make no bones about it. It's our native trout. We feel very special about it. And the South Moose, where we're going to go in and basically restore an entire watershed, is like, for a fisheries biologist, it's like one of the coolest things you could do. And it's not just about the trout. I mean, that's kind of why we're all there. But there's so much more to it. Restoring that connectivity. Number one, it serves more than trout. It serves salamanders. It's an ecological improvement, not just a trout improvement. Okay. We're improving the watershed, bringing it back to where it was. Rob and I have given some presentations to our divisions of lands and forest and Adirondack Park Agency. And when we tell them what we're doing up there with Tracy and her crew, they are just like amazed and like they can't even conceptualize it, but we're going to get there. And I don't think you guys know how lucky we are to have Tracy and her crew, because the planning that has to go through, the planning that needs to be done for a project this size is just immense. And we're still working through all that planning, the permits, the consultations that need to be made, the engineering, everything that needs to be done. And Tracy, we're working on it almost every week. We're on the phone working on this together because it's huge. It's a really big deal. It may not seem like much when you just look at it on a map, but it's a big deal. It really is. And it's exciting. And so, I think this project also feeds back to those conservation goals, the 5 conservation goals that Tracy pointed to. And I'm sorry, my voice is a little off tonight. This meeting here tonight, meetings that Tracy and Jesse and I have had with other groups like Native Fish Coalition, Trout Power, we're trying to build the big tent right now and build that big tent for brook trout advocacy. any of you who went to the public meetings for the Adirondack Brook Trout Pond Plan, which will be out relatively soon, you heard me say that, when people go to the Adirondacks, they see symbols of the moose and the bear and the loon. I want the brook trout there, and don't want it there just for the sake of brook trout. Want it there because it's part of our heritage, and it's really important. And I think this project, in conjunction with the brook trout plan coming out, is going to catapult that. So that's kind of my value statement dialogue there. But to me, that's so important, and it's so important to get people involved in this because we take it for granted as anglers and as biologists that everybody knows about brook trout and they know what kind of water they need and they know the habitat that they need and they know their life cycle, but they really don't. It's amazing that people don't. Fish aren't warm and fuzzy like a black bear is or like a moose is. But we can tell that story. You look at this fish, look at that fin there. It's beautiful. That has its own beauty. And I think that beauty is emblematic of the beauty of a restored system also. And I think we need to tell that story. And I think we're doing it, Tracy.
We're trying. We're
Yeah.
just getting started too. So I think that's
And the other cool thing about this project and all the culvert work that is done when we're trying to connect systems is it's measurable. A lot of times in fisheries, it takes a long time to have measurable progress. We're on this, we can say we've opened up 5 miles. Now we've opened up 10 miles. Now we've opened up 20 miles. And when you look at the South Moose project, and Tracy, I can't remember how many miles we're going to open up, but it's a lot. All right. It's
30.
really impressive. And, the last thing I'll say is I am hoping, and I truly mean that hoping because I'm not sure we'll have the capacity, that we can use this as a classroom for us to learn in, because I think that there's going to be a lot to learn here by doing this project. And so we're trying to set the stage for learning by going out there and taking some pre-data, and we'll be out there taking post-data to assessment to assess our progress and to evaluate our actions so we can learn and get better and maybe do a better job at telling the story as why this is so important work to do. And I'm
I
going
love
to
that.
look at that.
Steve,
Yeah.
I have to say that was perfect. And there was a segue that you made that I'd love to just kind of accentuate if I could. As someone not a fisheries biologist that walked into a lot of the understanding that I've gained from this team and the time in the field, maybe I can draw a line for some folks that didn't quite see this. I find this pretty interesting. It's something you'll learn from watching the video if you haven't. You've seen already examples of culverts, and we've talked about the importance of the passage of culverts. And you saw briefly in the video, crew from DEC and TU out with electroshock equipment. Now that's survey equipment to let us know where and how many fish we're able to find in a given reach, right? So the culvert work we're talking about and the immediate value that Steve just mentioned is really present in the South Moose. We have areas on these streams where there are brook trout present below a culvert, and just above that pitch culvert, there are no brook trout. The habitat is perfect up above. It's wonderful for the fish, but there's none up there. They're stunted by a bad culvert. So drawing that line together very often is something that may not necessarily come naturally to everyone that reads these topics. But what you're seeing with the data collection and these types of structural improvements, it can actually be justified right in the field with the fish swimming by our boots. So just something pretty neat to tack on to, what we're all already learning about South Moose. So
Yeah, that's a good point, Jesse. Okay, so I'm
Let's
gonna
go
have to
deep.
back up a little bit. Let's start at the
Yeah.
beginning.
Yeah.
So I am going to start at the beginning of how we ended up here. And it does start at the beginning of where we collected all the data in the Black River. And really what the next step is for us to really take that data and really zoom into the landscape and understand where we can have the biggest impact and what we're looking for. We're looking for stronghold brook trout, tied to our TU conservation portfolio modeling. We're looking for severe barriers. We're looking for protected lands. We're looking for miles connected. All of those things kind of go into this prioritization process for us to review the data. And as we zoomed in and looked and looked and looked, we ended up at the South Moose, top of the watershed, most of the landscape on most or all of the landscape on DEC land, and this opportunity in a stronghold where there was this cluster of severe barriers. And as we started to really get familiar with that particular landscape, again, I spent a lot of time at my desk, not in the field, zooming into maps, but realizing that this kind of landscape was so fragmented and it could benefit from culvert replacements. So that's where we started. And that's typically what we do. We start with this vision, and then we have to figure out how to fundraise for it, and we have to get everybody involved. So we have this vision. We wrote a grant that said, this is what we want to do. So we got some money. In the meantime, talking to Steve, and Steve's like, yes, this seems so exciting. And what it was is 30 culverts. Now it's somewhere in the 32 to 34 range that could potentially open up, not could potentially, it will open up, 30 miles. Now, on a landscape, what we were just talking about, 14 miles down on the Beaver River, the miles part of it is pretty exciting. 30 miles is a lot. In a headwaters system, that is a lot of connected stream for brook trout. So it's also a whole lot of culverts to be removed. Now in the South Moose, it became even more complicated because as you zoom in, there's a diversity of land management. So we have unit managements. So we have multiple, 3 or 4 or 5. We have within those management, we have different forest types, and there's wilderness, and there's intensive use, and all of those things. We've been trying to understand what that means for us to get the work done. And that's what, when Steve's talking about, planning, it's all trying to figure out what permits and how we're going to maneuver through all of this. But then ultimately, we have culverts that need to be replaced because they're on intensive use on roads. And we have culverts that just need to be removed because they're remnant culverts in wilderness that are maybe on a trail that are no longer used. So it's kind of, it spans the gamut with opportunities for incredible learning for the entire team. So, okay, I think that's it for that slide.
It's good.
Okay, so this is the good, we're going through the 30 that we have, and this gives you a good idea of what we're up against. We have culverts, like I said, on trails that just need to be removed. We have culverts that are undersized that are creating barriers and instability in streams. We have swash culverts. We have it all.
Avert your eyes if this is too much for you, if you care about the trout at all. You don't want them to see this before they go to bed at night, Oh, I guess we lost a photo somewhere in the process. The gray box you're seeing is a field crew out surveying, so I'll explain it for anyone who can't see it. But there's also one more bonus scary culvert for you to look at. If this haunts your dreams tonight, I'm sorry, but there's beautiful brook trout there at the bottom. We're just going to move right along from that.
Well, I'll show if you want to. I mean, I guess the point of that slide was that, we did have the culvert data, but we didn't have any other data. So we didn't know where the brook trout are. And as Jesse mentioned, we really needed to understand where the brook trout, if there were brown trout, if there were brook trout, where they were they upstream, were they downstream? And so part of what you were seeing in that video was last summer, we did get funding to do year 1 of this assessment. And again, the assessment was temperature, it was habitat, it was fish. The habitat part included, understanding the density of large wood, because we all know, brook trout love large wood and it's important for high quality habitat. What else were we looking at? We were looking at not macros.
Nope, not on that one.
That's the span of it. But we spent the summer, and I know Kyle is on this call. So between the DEC team and TU team, we were out collecting that data. And I think this particular slide kind of gives you some of our results that we have, and Kyle's working crazy, and so is Chris at DEC working to, generate the results from our year or our summer in the field. But what was exciting about our temperature data that you're looking at right now is that temperature in the South Moose is in really good shape. I mean, those particular color-coded symbols represent temperature that's kind of a rolling 30-day max. So that really gives you a sense of temperature across the landscape for the entire 30-day period, but it's rolling. So it's generally for the summer, temperatures in really good shape for brook trout. That's kind of the first piece. We really want to understand the flows and temperature to make sure that it can sustain brook trout well into the future. So the other thing, so we did 17 fish surveys. We looked at habitat at multiple sites, really understanding habitat below and above. We counted largewood and identified those 30 severe barriers for removal. Going into this next year, we'll do year 2. So whatever we missed, we'll be going back. We weren't able to get to all of the priority sites for fish surveys. We'll be able to go back and do follow-up fish surveys and collect any other missing data, and we'll do another year of temperature.
Excellent.
And that's a good segue for Rob.
Thank you, Tracy. Yeah, I guess I've been real fortunate to manage Region 5 during the time of the Trout Unlimited Home Rivers Initiative. And, I think I'll step away from maybe some of the culvert just for a second to say, we've been able to see tributary Camden Creek to the Battenkill River. Steve had mentioned our trout stream management plan and how our focus is on habitat. And I wanted to bring up that this stuff is working. It's that simple. Dr. John Braco and Jacob Fetterman had done some work in Camden Creek, and our pre-survey data indicated to us that stream qualified from our management plan as a wild stream. Great. That's wonderful. Wild browns, mostly in that system with some brook trout. They went in and did some restoration work on the stream. It wasn't a culvert project, but it was restoration work to right size the stream, get some habitat structures in there. A couple years after that, we went back and surveyed that same stretch. This stream is now wild quality, and we've gone through and changed our regulations to indicate that. That is just proof that this work is needed, for one, and two, that it works. And I really want to emphasize that we, the state, we can, fisheries guys, we can go out, we can do some surveys and we can collect some data, but we really need our partners to push these projects through. That is one thing where we're kind of hamstrung. Sometimes, getting in front of ourselves or getting stuck behind ourselves, but our partners help us push these projects through. And this is a great example of, part of this, as Tracy said, part of this area in the South Moose is wilderness, meaning it should be untouched by man, woman. So getting these structures fixed and or removed really kind of brings that sense of the Adirondacks back, because you'll see that connectivity, you'll see that habitat restoration, or you won't see those culverts, or you won't see bad culverts. And that is great to be a part of. I won't kind of push this too long, but I'm really excited. It's been wonderful, and I will take some of the credit for making Mr. Hurst into the brook trout guy that he is. It's been great. I love it. We got support from the top down. I got great biologists and technicians under me that love doing brook trout work. And again, we wouldn't be here without our partners. And Steve, Jana, and I, we really hope that the South Moose project is just the springboard, because this is complicated, as Steve mentioned. It's really complicated when you get multiple different divisions from a department trying to march to the same beat in the same direction with the ultimate goal of improving all of our resources. improving those culverts on those roads that our division of operations takes care of, in those units that our division of lands and forests manages, and even the division of water. And then there's the division of fish and wildlife. So it's really not a simple thing. To have Tracy behind us, just beating that drum, keeping us moving, is awesome. And we wouldn't be here without the great TU staff. Now, I'll just leave it at that and say thank you.
Appreciate that, Rob. Make
Yeah,
great
thank
mention
you.
of all the awesome work on the bat and kill, which we also find to be a real marker for success. And it's really incredible. Thank you for that big vote of confidence. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Excellent.
All right, Tracy, you want to keep driving this thing?
Okay, where are we going now? Okay,
Time to talk
excellent.
about what we do.
Now, and so I think that you, at this point, you recognize that we are all very excited about it. I think at the end of, anywhere between 3 or 5 years, depend on who you talk to, we will have the 30 culverts removed, and we will have that roadmap that Rob mentioned for doing this kind of work across the Adirondacks. I know we have partners at TNC, we have the Adirondack Council that are just waiting to understand how it's all going to work out. So I think the future is bright in that regard. And then over the next several years, there's just a lot of opportunity for folks, to get involved and to get excited and really, be part of the all of the work in the Adirondacks. And so now it's you, Jesse. Let's hear about that.
That's that, right? Thank you, Tracy. And these beautiful photos photographer Eric Teed took for us last year. We hosted a really great tree planting event up on the Beaver River. This was in partnership with the Arbor Day Foundation, which I'll mention again in another slide or two, as a major partner to TU, helping support riparian tree plantings all over the country. They are eager to continue to expand their outreach. We have been a willing partner to work with Arbor Day to get not only really great tree projects done, but using high quality, locally sourced native trees. So really, putting our whole hearts into the work we do to improve habitat happens with our in-stream work that the staff and our contractors work on, but also the work that you all have been a part of for many generations across the ages of folks on this call. You've been planting trees and helping out on these rivers for many years. This particular project, this photo here on the Boquet, is one that Rich Redmond took part in 35 years ago. I know because I have the magazine article to prove it, where he and local farmers were installing massive willow stakes in order to regrow a deeply eroded section of stream bank. We got photos of Rich pointing to a tree that now stands 45 or nearly 50 feet tall. That was once a stake in the bank side of the stream. And what we do to improve these streams really is something that we all take a lot of pride in. I know at TU, our mission really becomes clear when we get a chance to put our hands in the dirt and get our boots in the stream to get active. And so many folks who are part of this call tapped in tonight to say, yeah, that's great, but what do I do, right? So that's kind of our idea here, is to talk a little bit about what we can do. And opportunities like this one to improve streamside habitat are obviously our bread and butter at TU. So you're going to hear more about that too. But this is our dream, creating stewards for our waters. We need all generations and all interest levels of people to care for our rivers. And that's largely the kind of interest we're looking to stoke at TU. 8 months, 108 years old, anywhere in between, we have a job for you at TU. That's kind of what these photos help illustrate. So some of our work at TU is also about connecting to new generations. As I mentioned, folks that are the bright future of our fisheries staffs at DEC and at TU and at U.S. Fish and Wildlife. These are the individuals. They're in colleges around the country. Trout Unlimited started a program with Costa Sunglasses to help build fly fishing clubs that are conservation minded at colleges. These clubs just basically give a chance for these kids to not only get together and find other friends on campus who fish, but as part of their membership into this program, they're also responsible for conservation projects. So our staff here at TU helps cherry pick projects when we can bring these college students from our Five Rivers Club out. This particular photo you're seeing in the landscape here was part of a really fun restoration camp out weekend. It was prime time in the Catskills to fish late fall. Wonderful photo you can see here. Kids who had a great time planting trees. They also caught a ton of trout. They had a wonderful time. And that's the kind of energy we like to bring to our events. We bring college students and supporting our young fisheries minds with opportunities to get together and to work on streams and rivers. So this is, again, this is really the staple behind what we like to do and what our engagement staff like myself kind of pride ourselves on. So I'm thankful for these beautiful photos as well that were taken by a wonderful photographer. Her name is Nisa Kalkin. And again, this is the kind of thing that we're proud to share. You'll see these photos in Trout Magazine. You'll see them on TU's website. And we're very proud to be sourcing that great media. Our very good friend Andrew Pelletier is here, and you'll see some of his photos used in all my slides at all times because, again, another really gifted, talented photographer that we get to work with. So a lot of this connection to community has been about finding uniquely talented individuals and making unique partnerships. So a lot of this all stems right on the trout stream, and we get to spend a lot of time together. This is again, the mojo of TU is what you're looking at right here. Restoration work by a community. So the topic of how you can help, and this is an ever evolving topic. There are always new projects that will be presented. And our team here, Trout Unlimited, TU Northeast, as Tracy and I like to call our team, we post quite a lot on our social media channels to keep people in the loop on upcoming events. They may be something like this, an information session, or a tree planting, or a trash cleanup, or an invasive species removal, and they're all over the Northeast. So keep tuned to our Instagram page. And again, if you would like to stay in the loop on this stuff and you don't use social, but you want an email, please feel free to drop your email in the chat and I will follow up after. So how you can help. We do using a few very interesting GIS tools on our smartphones. TU has created some tools to get out on the rivers and document really important information about fish and fish habitat. In 2025, throughout the South Moose and around the Adirondacks, and really all of our priority waters across New York, we're going to be using the tools on our phone to monitor spawning behavior, spawning habitat, and numbers of fish actively participating in the fall spawning season. When it comes to the brook trout, we're going to spend a lot of time in late October into November to look for the kind of prime habitat we hope to see on these streams, the type of places we're making reconnection projects for to make sure these trout can get to the prime habitat for spawning. You can be a part of that. This app allows you the chance to go ahead and do this monitoring whenever you want. You don't have to be tied to a specific date of an event. You can take the tool, go out and monitor a stream. And if you have one near you that you could frequent once a week, it would be really tremendous data to be able to see the migration of time and how these fish have settled into spawning behavior. So the tool we have is called our Red Survey app. We have training online on our YouTube channel as well for anyone that wants to download the app and try it. It's a really wonderful way to get to learn your trout streams as well. You get to really get your laser focus in on where fish are and what their habitat looks like. So it really is very educational for the angler, and it's very helpful for us. So we've mentioned tonight, too, the opportunities to support adjacent organizations. We're not in this alone. TU is one of many organizations that cares deeply about brook trout in New York State. New York BHA, Trout Power, Native Fish Coalition are just a few organizations that take part in really important work for brook trout. Our friends at Trout Power have been a part of eDNA studies for quite some time to help really track down the genetic heritage of these unique brook trout throughout New York State, and specifically right where we're working in the Adirondacks. So again, partnered organizations like Native Fish Coalition and Trout Power have really incredible missions as well. So our members that support TU are also working in tandem with these other organizations. And I'm so glad that we have this level of direct partnership now. We've engaged in collaborative signage projects a little bit west of where we're working out on Owego Creek, where again, Native Fish Coalition, DEC, and our local TU chapter, the Al Hazard chapter, will able to partner together on a signage campaign, get out and improve people's education right on the stream. That's another type of project that we hope to do more of. I won't spill the beans, but I'll say keep your eyes open for a project of that nature in the future. Specifically, as was mentioned earlier, we really want to see opportunities to elevate the brook trout. The iconography, the brook trout and what it stands for is something that's been spoken about by Steve and Tracy earlier. We want to find unique ways to do so. And again, if you have ideas, whether that connects to the art community, photography, ways to help celebrate the brook trout, making small videos like the one we did is another opportunity, again, to shine the light on the brook trout in a positive way and shed awareness of the sensitivity of that species. The Arbor Day Tree Planting Initiative, as I mentioned, if you are aware of stream sections, and this does not have to be tied to priority waters in New York State, this is an open casting call from the Arbor Day Foundation. If there are streams within your reach that are looking for trees, the Arbor Day Foundation is interested in learning about open riparian zones on your local rivers. So if that is something that you've seen on a local stream that's now had degraded habitat or a loss of trees over time, you'd like to replant native trees, that's one of a few programs out there where you can get trees from an organization like the Arbor Day, and we can help you put together a local tree planting through your TU chapter. The Five Rivers Clubs and your local TU chapter that we mentioned are obviously the hubs for all your local activity. And everything you do to support those chapters does come right back to our work here on staff at TU. We have leaned very heavily on the support of our local chapters around the Adirondacks and adjacent territories that have helped not only with their volunteer time, but financially have fundraised to help us fill gaps that were so important in our work. And individuals who are on this call tonight have been a part of supporting our work in very unique ways. Some of them you may not even have realized, and that's kind of where I'm headed next here. So down in the Catskills, again on Mongoff Creek, there was a landmark project that was completed this year. And I took us out of the South Moose to look at the Catskills for a moment because this sign, something you should get used to seeing on some of the streams that have been really importantly impacted by work of DEC and TU. Your support, your $5 of your Habitat and Access stamp that you purchase every year goes to projects like this. I ask as many anglers as I meet on the stream or anywhere in my passing at TU, I always say, hey, do you buy the $5 stamp? Many, if not all, say yes. I always buy the $5 stamp. And I always ask them, do you know where that money goes? Now, with projects like this, you can scan a QR code and you'll be able to see that projects like this have been supported by you all as anglers. So I really want to, again, reiterate just how important programs like this that DEC has created to a very small annual contribution that generates several $1,000s on a project like this. It's a huge win. And again, you all can be proud of your support, whether you knew it or not in the seasons leading up till now. But your support of a program like the Habitat and Access stamp is really something that we can all be proud of. And it helped create this incredible success, again, down in the Catskills. Between up and downstream of this dam and the connecting tributaries, it was 15 miles of reconnected wild trout habitat. And if you've ever been down to Mongoff Creek, you know what a gem it is. So this is another one of our really proud moments, I would say, from the last few seasons to look at this removal project and to know that it was supported by our friends. Theodore Gordon Fly Fishers, another tremendous organization committed to conservation, has been a really important partner and stepped up to help us out to make sure this project happened right in their backyard in the Catskills. So I bring this up for that reason, that this is about community and it's about our partnerships. And it's also about the individual anglers who have supported with their $5 stamp purchase every year. So keep that thing going. It's really doing great work. Unique partnerships. We have very good friends right in the heart of the Catskills at Westkill Brewing. They've been making a delicious, crisp 5% native Iroquois white corn lager for the last, almost 10 years now. And the beer is illustrated by a local artist named Steven Weinberg, lives down the street. He's a Westkill landowner. This year, his property will get a restoration project done by DEC. Just down the road in front of the brewery, there's miles of public fishing rights where you can go and explore famous trout water, the water of Art Flick, the historical Westkill stream where you'll find native brook trout. It's right along Westkill Brewery. And as part of their commitment that goes beyond a pretty can with a brook trout, the brewery has stayed focused on ways to help support conservation. Last year and this year, they have hosted a fly fishing catch and release only contest called the Catskill Charm Circle. It's a really fun event. If you're interested in participating, you should know that your dollars for a ticket in that also go directly to Theodore Gordon Fly Fishers this year, a partner in our work. And anytime you're at your local craft beer package store and you're looking for a beer to take home, This is distributed across New York at over 100 locations. 2% of every can sale goes directly to brook trout habitat improvement projects at TU. These are local business owners who love conservation. These are the types of people we want to celebrate from the rooftops in our work at TU. I'm glad that they're friends and that they were willing to step up and take their small business to the next level to support brook trout. So I'm really proud of this unique partnership, the video we made this year, and ways to help celebrate the brook trout. I'm hoping that you'll help me carry that enthusiasm forward. So when you ask what can you do, it's that. We're looking for unique ways to celebrate the brook trout. We want to have really fun events. We need to come up with unique fundraising because there will be more gaps in our fundraising needs. As you all are probably very well aware from the news, there will be opportunities for you to help play a major role in our work in New York State at TU. So you're a part of the picture, and so are the many folks that have helped put tonight together. So I have to say thank you, obviously, to our wonderful guests here at DEC for being a part of this thing. And we're getting towards the end of our slides, but this does not need to be the end of the discussion. We actually have quite a few minutes open right now for the room for Q&A. If anyone would like to, feel free to unmute yourself, throw a question in the chat, however you'd like. Don, I see your hand up, so you're going to go first, if you would, please.
Well, it just relates to the culverts or crossings that did not make the list of 30 for replacement or removal to improve the connectivity. What's likely to become of the other culverts or crossings that didn't make the list, but that have been a part of the assessment? What's likely to happen with those? I mean, those locations.
So the reason why we ended up with so many was that we chose everything. So it did need to be at least a moderate barrier or be in terrible condition. So what we are hoping is that when we leave the South Moose in that area, we'll have removed all of the culvert trash from the wilderness and replaced all of the culverts on the intensive use road with larger structures to be in good shape for at least 50 to 70 years, maybe more, but that's usually the lifespan of a new culvert. So
one last part of the question, and then I'll stand down. Were any brook trout assessments done at the culverts that did not make the list of 30? Were investigations done to see if brook trout inhabited those parts of the tribs? Just wondering.
Not yet. We have only started, so we haven't quite even got through all of the culverts that we've identified as priorities and sort of to understand, brook trout above and below.
Yep. I think a couple of those culverts, when we went and visited them, they might have been like road ditch culverts, right? So I think those were the ones we were a little iffy on whether or not we were going to replace as part of this project, because you won't really. I'll shut up now.
No, I think
thank you very much. Yeah.
I think, Don, just to clarify what Rob was saying. So we have the assessment data, and then we've been going back to ground truth that data and really understand what it means on the ground. And then we'll go back and continue to sample until we understand, where the brook trout are.
Great presentation and fantastic work you all have been doing. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Don.
Don. Feel free, all open air, if anyone has any questions.
Sorry about my teenager alarm.
That's all right.
Just a comment, and I think it goes back to Steve, what you said before, and some other folks too, about this being a watershed level approach, which is just fantastic. If that's the way of the future, that's worthy of applause, because that's just, like you say, that's an awesome thing. And I'm thinking about 30 miles of stream, that's also incredible. Try to walk 30 miles of stream in the Adirondacks. It'll take you, more than a day. It's quite an accomplishment. And thinking through some of this stuff, just the logistics of this must be pretty crazy. Maybe you can talk about that a little bit, because if you're on wilderness land, you really can't really use power tools, of my understanding. You have to dig these things out and haul away the culverts. Is that what I'm thinking here?
This is Steve's favorite part.
Yeah. Tell him, Steve.
Yeah, no, it is challenging, and we have a meeting scheduled in the next couple of weeks here. We have all of our culvert replacements lined up on a spreadsheet. We have all sorts of measures associated and attributes associated, and we're trying to figure out like how to attack this, how to group things, because as Tracy said, I think we have 5 different categorizations from wilderness, down to intensive use. And in some cases, we can use machinery. In some cases, we can't. And Tom, I'm hoping to get you out there and a few other folks and some of these skid trail culverts that are out in the middle of the woods. We're going to get real creative with block and tackle and get those out and have a ball doing it. And I think that's what Jesse was getting at too, because I think really, we're going to get good work done, but I think that also brings the brook trout community, for lack of better words, together and helps for that advocacy and that caring.
Yeah, because I could just imagine that this culvert was put in when there was a skid road, and that was 35 years ago. There's no more skid road, so my hat's off to you on the logistics of this, because this just sounds almost superhuman and quite fantastic. Thank you.
It's going to be fun. Some manual extractions, you might say. Pam, I see Pam, you have your hand raised. Feel free to unmute whenever you're ready.
Okay, so this is actually Dave Bornhold, and I'm here with
Hey, Dave. Hey, Dave.
How are you? So when I was an undergraduate at Cornell University in the early 70s, and my advisor was Carl Schofield, who was very instrumental in the acidification and the rain issues with respect to brook trout in the Adirondacks. That was a huge issue. My understanding is that the pH at this point of your rainfall on average is much better than it was in the early 70s. But I'm kind of interested in where we stand with that, because that's a real tough issue when you talk about brook trout rejuvenation and restoration.
Yeah, I think that also came up when we were developing our assessment protocol, and we have been pulling pH samples when we go back to do our concept level design. So we do have a handful of pH data, but we'll continue to do that through the next phase of assessment. And so far, you're correct in that we're seeing pretty okay pH numbers. So
Rob can talk about that at a higher level too. That might be helpful, Tracy.
Sure, please do.
Yeah, sure. So we've been working, when ALSC did their data collection in the 80s, we've been working with that data ever since, because they had that long-term monitoring project. And we were real fortunate to have some staff from ALSC that had that really great background on the water chemistry. We were able to see the changes and the improvements. And with DEC data that we had going back to the 50s in some locations, that really important information that ALSC collected, and then the data throughout, what we started to see was a change somewhere around 2010 or so, when the pH of the ponds, which is where it's more impactful for a long-term period of time, it started to improve and get closer to maybe those historic levels, low 6s, we'll say. And that progression has continued. And, one of the things that we're still kind of dealing with is snowpack melt off and runoff. There's still like that loading of low pH water that can flush a system. So we're still seeing that, but even that is improving, and it's great. This is really an awesome time to be a brook trout biologist on this cusp of restoration efforts, not only, physical, but also chemical. We've started a bunch of trout policies in ponds, with the hopes of, that water's starting to look different. It physically looks different. there's bugs in it, there's newts in it, let's get some fish in it. And they've taken off. Brook Trout Lake is a perfect example of that. So they continue to improve. One of the things that we're going to be doing when we do our pond surveys is we do collect water samples, and they will be analyzed for pH, ANC, and a couple other things. So we're keeping our finger on the pulse there. We're always looking for new waters that have recovered. We have a program. It's our BCS waters, basic cation surplus. And that's exactly some of the work that Dr. Schofield is doing. So yeah, slowly getting better. Definitely the worst hit was that southwestern section of the Adirondacks, which is where we're talking. Just because it's a geology thing, it's a forest cover thing. It's a really complex situation, but it's getting better.
So yeah, thanks, Rob. I appreciate that. I'm glad to hear that it is improving. I mean, the Adirondack waters have always, because of they are and the environment and the sand and the conifers and so forth, they've always been less than 7 to begin with. And when you start stressing them to the least bit, it pushes them over the edge, and then you got a problem. So it's a very precarious thing, I'm sure. And if it's improving now, I'm very happy to hear that.
That's great. Paul Miller has a hand up, if he could.
So many questions. But the cold water conservation team is a real part of the answer. I think they're one of the best things that TU has done for brook trout and trout in general in New York State in my time. Steve Hurst, could you tell us a little bit about the status of funding, a little bit about the history of the funding for work like this? It's not cheap, but the TU team gives you a bang for buck. But what's your budget on this sort of work?
So this project, if we just talk about this project here, let me back up. As Jesse pointed out, we've been putting a lot of money through since 2018, I believe, through the habitat stamp, using habitat stamp money, and we've ramped that up. I'm going to probably have a wide confidence interval here in this estimate, Paul, but I'd say we've supplied close to $300,000 in materials, right, Tracy, around there?
I think you did a good job with that number.
About $300,000 worth of materials for TU projects. And it works great, because like I said, why we work so well together is we both have our own areas of expertise and things we bring to the table. I'm not the greatest biologist in the room here. So unlike Rob and Jana, I mean, I bring the bureaucracy to the table and try and hunt down money for these projects. For the South Moose, Tracy has bird dogged a lot of different funding sources, but one funding source that is going to be instrumental in this project will be the latest Environmental Bond Act. There's money. Last year, there was $10 million made available to NGOs and to towns, municipalities, villages for this type of work. Not only culvert replacement, there was another $10 million for doing in-stream work, and we'd really like to see more people apply for that. I'm actually on a team that's working on this year's application process. We're trying to make it easier for folks. We're looking at the rules. Last year was our first year. But anyway, I'm sure that Miss Brown will be applying for some of that money. This is exactly what it's designed for. And the time is right now, Paul, because without that bond act, I think this would be a very hard project to pull off, especially now we could see a tightening of federal money.
Yeah, I would be happily add to that. So I have to say that in this very crazy climate of funding freezes, that your New York team is in good shape because New York State has such a impressive conservation funded vision. We have, I would say, half of our budget relies on state funding, and it has for over a decade. And we see that, as Steve mentioned, we're so grateful that the that we'll be able to rely on bond funding where the federal funding may fall off. But right now we have secured last round of WQIP. We secured about 500,000 towards this project, and then we also have Save Our Great Lakes conservation funding. We got a new grant, and we have the remains of the previous grant. So we have about 800,000 going into the project, and we'll have to fundraise. I think we're probably looking 3.5 million total, give or take. I know, give or take. It might be give or take up, but that's
and then some.
So Steve, I think the proper title was Director Brown.
That is the great. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
So one further thing, if you want to be inspired by removal of obstructions to fish, Google the Milltown Dam in Missoula, Montana.
Oh, yes.
Within weeks, they found fish in the upper watershed that hadn't been there in decades. So it really helps when you remove obstacles.
Yeah, that's a cool project too. Thanks, Paul.
Awesome.
You know, Paul, the one thing too that I'll add is by working together too, Tracy actually uses DEC for these other funding sources as a source of match. You know, most of the funds she gets, she has to match, and we dedicate our time towards that match also.
Yeah, critical.
You guys are doing a lot for fish. You and your regional managers really appreciate it, Steve. We know we have a partner.
Well, we love doing it. And, you know, we're very fortunate, as Rob said, we couldn't get this work done on our own. And it's great because we bring the fisheries expertise to the table. Tracy brings the habitat expertise. We all try to get the money together and the resources, and it just works. And I think, you know, I'm a little biased, Paul, but I think New York State is a leader, really. I think we set a great example for the other states in regards to TU and what they do. I mean, there's a lot of great work going out there throughout the country, but I really think these types of projects over the last 5 to 7 years are putting us on the map. And I think we're starting to get some recognition for it also.
Yeah, great. And I have to do a plug. Okay. So this year is our 100-mile reconnection. We're actually way over 100 miles, but we're going to celebrate 100 miles this year of reconnected. So over the last 5 or 6 years, we have reconnected over 100 miles of stream throughout New York. So like you said, Steve, like this momentum that we're seeing is significant, and 100 miles is so fun. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to celebrate that, celebrate brook trout.
There'll be a party. We're going to work on the details.
But that's the momentum. I mean, it's not a mistake that there was a block of funding set aside to do this with the Bond Act. There's a lot of pushing to get us there and to have this money available because, you know, it's been behind the scenes and not everybody sees it, but this is the direction we've been pushing in, as I said before. And it's not just about changing the culture. It's trying to get these things done behind the scenes with money and everything else. And, you know, we worked pretty hard on the Bond Act to make sure that we could do projects like this.
Excellent. Does anybody else have questions? All right, we have to get Steve out of here. We promised him 8:30.
We promised.
No later than
Exactly.
8:30.
I think we're doing pretty good on that. I want to thank everyone that came tonight and offered some great comments and questions too. And obviously a huge thank you to Steve, Rob, and Jana for making the time into the evening to be a part of this. It truly is inspiring to be a part of this really cool event. And thank you all for doing this. Again, if you have any questions, my contact, my email, anytime, I'm always available. And again, thank you all for doing this. So I hope you all have a great night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.
Night now. Thank you all.
Guys.
Take care.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob, Jana.
My pleasure.
Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you all. Good night.